Nigeria's headline inflation rate has increased to 33.69% relative to the March 2024 headline inflation rate, which was 33.20%, indicating a further increase of 0.49 percent points. Data from the National Bureau of Statistics show that the headline inflation rate was 11.47%, higher compared to the rate recorded in April 2023, which was 22.22%. The food inflation rate in April 2024 was 40.53% on a year-on-year basis, which was 15.92% higher compared to the rate recorded in April 2023. How do we maintain a balance and reduce inflation? My guest, Dr. Tochukwu Okafor, who joins us via Zoom, will speak to us. Dr. Tochukwu, thank you so much for joining us on Insights.
Oh, thank you so much. It's nice to be here.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's start talking. What would be your assessment of these figures by NBS?
First off, it's no surprise. I mean, it's no surprise to anybody at this point. But for purpose of clarity and simplification, I'm going to do what I don't like doing. I don't like doing partial equilibrium analysis when I'm discussing these matters. But at this point, I think we just have to do it briefly. So going back to February, we know that in February, inflation was, I think it came in at 31.7, right? And when we saw the differential between February and March, from 31.7, it jumped to 33.2, I think. And we know that one of the major causes of that was the exchange rate crisis during the period. I mean, everybody was putting or pivoting all the expenses on exchange rate. And then we saw that the gap between the differential between February figures and March figures was very high, 31 to 33. However, for these April figures, if you look closely, you see that there was an increase, but it was tepid. I mean, the inflation figures jumped from 33.2 to 33.69, right? And food inflation jumped from 40.01 to 40.53. Now, the reason why these figures were tepid was, if you noticed in the last month, exchange rate has been stable. I mean, relatively stable. I mean, we witnessed a certain level of appreciation when it, I think, climbed to, I think, around 1,100. But navigating away from that, the real problem here isn't the temporary measures that the CBN is employing. And I think at this point, it's clear that we have to accept that this is not a job for just the CBN. We've been saying it, but at this point, I think it's becoming more obvious that the CBN is not able or will not be able to single-handedly handle this. Both the fiscal authorities and the monetary have to come in play at this point. And why do I say this? I say this because I think the next MPC meeting is holding, I think, next week, right, or this week. And there is most likely going to be a rate hike because the governor has unequivocally stated that with the current or continuing inflation increase, there will be a rise in MPR rate. So we are most likely going to see MPR increase by 100 basis points from the 24% we are seeing, or maybe 100 or 150 basis points. But,
all right, let's keep our fingers closed. Let me quickly come in there. The rise in food inflation on a year-on-year basis was caused by increase in prices of virtually all the classes of food. This has encouraged food inflation, and this is actually affecting other aspects. So what are the implications? Could you break it down for us?
Okay, so like I said, this thing is not a one-way traffic. So first off, in the markets, what you're seeing is more of speculation, right? Some people that are not even using foreign products or maybe fertilizers imported to grow their crops are actually including the dollar equivalent to their prices because everybody is just maximizing or cashing out on this current crisis. But the truth about it is there are some organizations that are actually suffering the whole exchange rate crisis. So first off, we know that people have to import fertilizers, we import the machinery we use, we import even the seeds, even the feeds for the poultry. But aside that, if I'm going to deviate a little bit, most of the corporates with this MPC meeting that is coming up, this MPR, if it's increased, right, and then increase the MPR rate, what you're going to be seeing is the balance sheet of most of these corporates are going to explode. And you're going to be seeing non-performing loans from the banks going to increase. I mean, the CBN has said that the benchmark should be between 7 and 8%. We might see this increase because that, well, some of the companies, for instance, Dangote, for example, has, I think, 700 billion in commercial papers. And right now, with this revaluation for the banks, we are going to see, and then this increase in MPR rate, we are going to see that the debt profile of some of these companies are going to skyrocket, and you're going to see decline in production. So once that increases, especially with regards to their debt profile, you're going to be seeing an increase in their payment patterns. And once there's an increase in their payment patterns, there's going to be reduction in production. And when there's a reduction in production, by extension, you're going to be seeing an increase in the prices of goods. So the same applies to some of the food production companies and also the farms. We also have the issue of insecurity. We also have the issue of lack of palatable or adequate roads networks. But those are not really the problem. The real problem here is the inflationary crisis is stemming from the banking industry. With the recapitalization in place that is already ongoing, coupled with the crisis of the CBN trying to increase MPR most likely by 150 basic points tomorrow, we are going to be seeing most companies transferring that whole package, if I can use that word, to the consumers. So you're going to be seeing consumers paying a lot for food. So the problem now is this thing is going to continue lingering on and on. Now, fighting the dollar is a temporary feat for me, because if you look closely now, the dollar is currently at 1,400 again, even though it appreciated. So this continuous fluctuation is going to continue milking the whole inflationary crisis. Now you need to understand that inflation is different from the inflation rate. What we are looking at here is just the rate. The prices are sticky. If it has increased, it has increased. If you increase the prices of pepper, it stays there. So the next rate that you're going to see is going to be increasing. So the problem now is they are not looking at the inflation itself and the impact on the citizens. They are looking at the rates. The real thing we are supposed to be looking at is the prices and know how to peg some of these prices.
But really, what is the way out of this?
You know, I've been saying this and I'll keep saying it, and I'll say it till someone hears it. The truth is, it might sound harsh to say it out loud, but the only way forward now is to demonetize. I'm sorry, I'm going to say this. The truth is, a lot of people say it's the harshest policy, it's inhumane. But the truth is, the suffering they are going through now is as inhumane or even more inhumane than that policy. Because if it had started being implemented, by now we would have started seeing the result. Because the truth is, the amount of money supply and cash flow in circulation in the economy is part of the reason why we are seeing this inflationary crisis. People know that there is money in circulation. The amount of money that is in circulation versus the money in the system is ridiculously dispersed. It's sparse. So when people know that there is excess money in circulation, a good example, let me not speak big English and all these polemics. Truth is, if I know that someone within my estate has probably 1 billion that is not cashed, their information goes around. There's information asymmetry. And I know this. For some reason, I can always peg my prices at anything, knowing that this person is going to buy. An example is, in Nigeria now, before, when you go to market and you price something, right? If you price, and the woman says, 50 naira, you say, no, 20 naira, and she said, no, and you're walking away, she says, Oga, come back. Oh, today, if you turn your back, before you take 10 steps, someone has bought it times 2 the price you were even pricing it. And that's why you see all the market people are emboldened. But this problem is only there because there is information that there is excess money in circulation. And those that have the money are willing to spend it because they have nothing to lose. They rather spend it than save it. Because right now, it is better to spend than to save, considering the current interest rate and the rates which the banks are willing to give you as interest on your savings, right? So the truth is, everybody is keeping the money at home. And then you have people that are also using it for speculative purposes, for switching to the dollar, which I'm not going to go into. But the truth about it is, information asymmetry is what is one of the major problems. So as long as there is excess money in circulation, we are going to continue seeing this problem. So first thing the CBN has to do, I know a lot of people will speak big English of doing oil receipts, bunkering. The truth is, all those things don't even count. The truth is, it's all bound to our production capacity. But that aside, we need to demonetize. Right, demonetize the CBN, and the monetary authorities need to gain control again over the system, because right now there are some individuals, specific individuals, that have more power than the authorities. So until the CBN can gain that monetary power, and then the fiscal authorities work in tandem with them while they are demonetizing, and demonetization is not something you do overnight. It's something sensitization is supposed to have started now if it's going to be implemented in the third quarter of 2025. So if we have not started doing that now, I mean, how do we expect the demonetization to work? Meanwhile, we are doing increments in NPR, and NPR is just pursuing inflation rate. Inflation is 33%. Let's just keep it at 33. NPR is 24. So before you bridge that gap for investors to start coming in, there's an investment deficit, 24% to 33%. It needs to cover before investors start coming in. So NPR or MPC will continue increasing rate. It's no surprise. I can guarantee you, let's continue this MPC meeting every month till 2026. They will continue increasing because inflation is the one that is directing NPR, which is not supposed to be. It's NPR that is supposed to be controlling inflation. But because there's excess money supply, there will continue to be inflation. And when there's inflation, MPCs will always sit down, increase by 150 basic points, and then when they go again, they have another meeting in the next 3 months, they increase again, and then we keep hearing the same story and the same story. Meanwhile, people are dying. It does not make sense. So it's time, sometimes, if it's time to take injection, just take it once, enjoy it, and then you see the benefits, rather than taking paracetamol, drinking abo, taking pepper soup. Take the injection. It's time to demonetize. Enough of this whole MPC, NPR. See, MPC, I love what you're doing. You're doing a good job. But it's not going to work at this point because the crisis is a maladapted one. We have cost push, demand pull, inflation moving simultaneously. And this is the first time in history where we're seeing inflation and recession moving simultaneously. I mean, even Keynesian theory doesn't have a solution for this because they say when there's inflation, you have to mop up money and do deflationary monetary policy. If you do deflationary, people are going to die. Businesses are not going to work. So at this point, you have to strike that balance. The only way to strike that balance, if you're going to go back to the original concept of what economics says, is demonetize, put everything, ceteris paribus, put everything on equal pegging ground and start all over. If you're patching a house that the foundation is already broken, give it time. It will crumble and you'll patch again.
I wish I had more time to talk to you. Quite interesting talking to you, but I want to thank you so much. We will continue this conversation sometimes, I promise you. Well, thank you so much for your contributions this week. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And that's it on this episode of the program. Do join us same time next week for more on Insight. My name is Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. We'll see you next week. Be your brother's keeper. Bye for now.